then you'll all be off to the races. I'll interrupt if you guys are yelling and screaming over each other. I will try to keep us on track, and I might have questions for both of you as we go. Any questions from your guys' end?
Nope.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's start. It's gonna be like 10 seconds of silence at the beginning while uh my little intro goes. But yeah, let's do it. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, we've got a great show for you today. We are going to be having a debate on rent control. This was inspired by Mamdani, the mayor of New York City's recent announcement that he's going to freeze rents. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and whether rent control is a good idea, bad idea, whether we should be for it, against it, or mixed in between. We got some great stuff to cover. But before we do that, before we get into the debate, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate today's Supreme Court ruling, once again reaffirming that it is not only the law of the land, but our constitutional right to have birthright citizenship in this blessed nation
It's also
under God.
a good
Okay.
reminder that 4 Supreme Court justices don't believe in this in the Constitution. Just throwing that out
Look,
there.
Gorsuch was a surprise.
Gorsuch was a
his
surprise.
dissent-
Yeah,
if you read his dissent,
I have
he
it.
actually is okay and thinks illegals are protected under the Constitution, right? It's a very specific niche kind of proprietary disagreement that he has about specifically visitors, right?
Alito and
But
Thomas are no surprises, though.
oh yeah, Alito and Thomas,
Those
they're
fucking
gone. They're
psychos.
cooked. They're not actual, like, I don't view them as actual justices. They're
don't
just
view them as
basically
people either,
MAGA
so-
mouthpieces at this point.
Right.
But like, one of the things we gotta, and thank you for bringing that up, because some people in my chat were saying similar things. One of the things we have to understand is that a 5-4 decision or a 6-3 decision or a 7-2 decision, all of those are just as binding as a 9-0, right? So while, yes, I think it should have been a 9-0 decision, easy based on the merits, we take what we get and we celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
One of the biggest weapons that MAGA has is the demoralization of the left and of Democrats. And they're always going to point to things and say, well, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So every win you have, every time you succeed, they're going to try to poo poo on it, to rain on it, to say, oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Take the win, celebrate the win, enjoy that we still live in a country where we have these constitutionally protected rights, and celebrate that the people, the traitors to our Constitution, who have been trying to legislate from the bench to get this amendment overturned, have been defeated. They've been thwarted.
Amen.
They've been destroyed. They are, if you read their chats and their discords, and if you read their tweets that they've been tweeting, they are molding. They are in disarray. They are breaking, like they're crashing out in a
Yeah,
very
Ben
real way.
Shapiro was having a field day, which I was a little bit surprised by. I always consider him more of a little bit more geared towards the Constitution, a little bit more rational and reasonable. But that's my mistake, and I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize for thinking that Ben Shapiro was even slightly rational.
Zephyr Hash for $2 says it's about future decisions getting compromised. Why borrow problems of tomorrow? We won today. And yes, look, I'm again, on the current trajectory we are on, they are losing power. They are at their peak.
True.
Okay? They will never be as powerful as they are today.
Which is why it's
as
so
long as
important to vote
as
blue
long-
in the midterms, right?
knock on wood, as long as there's not some fucking weird catastrophe or something, right? We own the finish line, as Joe Biden would like to
Hell
say.
yes.
The future is in our hands, and
Hang
we
on the
just can't
finish
fuck it up. But yes, birthright citizenship is the law of the land. We once again celebrate that this nation isn't about bloodlines. We don't have a blood quantum. There's no heritage Americans. That isn't a thing. What makes an American isn't what's in their blood, but it's an allegiance to an idea, a concept, a proposition. And the Supreme Court absolutely upheld that today. And despite every right winger, every right wing organization, the president itself, right, trying to overturn this, they couldn't. They failed. And I will say though, I will say that Trump seems to think he can just legislate this away. Let me read this tweet. I'll show it to you guys. Give me 1 second. Boom, boom, boom. And again, I apologize for the delay, but this is worth talking about.
I think this is a good conversation to have. 100%.
Okay, so and it might be hard for you guys to read. I'll just read it for you. So this is what he tweeted out earlier today. He said the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country, but we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation with the support of the president that has now been determined during this process. No long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary. Congress should start today to work on ending expensive and unfair to our country birthright citizenship. They will have my complete and total support, President Donald J. Trump. So again, he is advocating here, and I want to be very clear, for ignoring the Constitution. This is not the first time he's done it. This is not the second time he's done it. He consistently advocates and pushes for just ignoring Constitution and ignoring the courts when they don't go his way.
Yeah.
In fact, during the ICE debacle, the DOJ ignored hundreds of court orders. This is par for the course. So while I have strong disagreements with people who advocate for packing the court, and I don't think that we are there yet, or we need to pack the court, I will say that people who run cover for Trump are far more dangerous to this country and Constitution than any court packer advocate ever would be. So
Hell
just
yeah.
want to get that out there.
Thank you, Wick.
Magic Skywizard,
Thanks,
do you have
Wick.
thoughts on this before we get to the meat?
No, I pretty much agree with what you've said so far. Like, agree that obviously, like that would he wants to ignore the Supreme Court. He's done it multiple times so far, in certain instances, and then the Supreme Court delays it, and then eventually just gets overruled. So it's happened multiple times. So I kind of just agree with what you said.
$5 from Brenda creates to say SCOTUS just granted Trump power over independent agencies. Look, Humphrey's executor and all that was being overturned for. Look, that was going to end whether you liked it or not. And this has been something way before Trump that they've been doing. There are arguments for and against it. They have made carve outs for the FTC, for example, or what the Federal Trade Commission, I believe. But yeah, I mean, look, this is again, stop doing this. Take your W.
Yeah.
Take your win.
There are
Stop
definitely
doing this.
there are things to focus on that are terrible going on in this country. It's going to be really easy to find those things, and we could find those tomorrow, or we can, just take a breath, realize that Trump was not able to overturn birthright citizenship. And by the way, it was a 6-3 decision to overturn the executive order, and he's like, well, we can just legislate it. But the 5-4 decision was that if that were to be legislated, it would be overturned. So no, you can't just legislate it.
Well, no, because Gorsuch would oppose it on certain other grounds. Like Gorsuch has a very proprietary view on this subject, which is weird, but it's more like a 5.5 to 3. It's weird. It's weird.
Okay.
But like, yeah,
I'll have to read.
you
I'll
have to actually read
Gorsuch's opinion.
you have to read the dissent. You have to read the concurrences
Yeah,
to
I
kind
haven't
of
done that
understand
yet.
where they're at. $5 from The Last Bastion to say birthright citizenship upheld. AW ban case granted cert. Constitution enjoyers eating good today.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful. Also, as a matter of record and matter of law, Trump's attempt to relitigate his case of sexual assault against Carol, I believe is her name. The Supreme Court denied that. So yes, SCOTUS has been actually pretty good lately. $2 from Tessicle Johnson to say 86.47. Well, thank you for that $2. Yeah, it's great.
It's always
Was
so
Clarence Thomas
funny.
one of the 5? No, Clarence Thomas was not one of the 5. He was one of the dissenters. He wrote 91 pages of a dissent, a long, rambling, vague, slightly incoherent dissent. And Alito, if you read his dissent, it's just autistic screeching. That's all it is. It's incoherent. It's for the people who make fun of some of Jackson's dissents or Sotomayor's dissents, just read Alito's dissent. It is fucking psychotic. He's having a mental breakdown. I don't know. Maybe he's a little too old. Maybe he should retire. But it was clearly madness.
It's always so
seeping in.
funny that like Trump's three SCOTUS nominees are like the most moderate of the conservative justices.
Amy
Like,
Coney Barrett's actually
I know
pretty
she's
good.
like
Good, pretty
not
good
that
one.
terrible.
So yeah.
Definitely, I would prefer a lot of I would prefer
Okay.
a liberal justice. But yeah,
Okay, people are yelling
Anyway.
at us. People are yelling at us.
let's do rent control.
Yeah, let's get what we were here to get.
Let's do it.
Again, and I guess I'll just again for the VOD after that I might be making. Today we're going to be talking about rent control. It was inspired by Mamdani's decision to freeze rents in New York City. Is that going to be good for New York City or bad for New York City? And is rent control in general something we should advocate for or against, or should we be neutral on it? We got some great guests here today to talk about it. I'm going to give the mic to them to introduce themselves, tell the people who you are, what you do, why we should listen to you, and your thoughts on the subject. And since it's just the two of you, I'm going to allow you extra time. So take all the time you need. I'm going to give the mic first to Mr. Magic Sky Wizard. First time on my channel. Glad to see you, buddy. Give us what you got.
Hey, how you doing? So yeah, I'm just a community member in the server. I mean, politically, I consider myself a democratic socialist. And yeah, I'm generally when it comes to this topic, I'm for the rent control position. The reason why it depends on what we're looking at when we're talking about rent control, because what is it rent control trying to solve? And if the question is, does it solve the housing issue? It doesn't. It's a stopgap measure for stability in the market, so that people aren't pushed out, so that you can keep your core constituents in where they live, where they're born in, and stuff like that. So that's the main goal of this policy. It generally does that good very well. It's not the first time New York has done this as well. They did it back in, I want to say 2016 with Blasio, or was it 2017? But
They did it like 3 times.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah,
did
go
it
ahead.
3
Yeah.
different rent freezes under De Blasio.
Sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting, but go ahead.
No, you're good. It kind of helps. And so, like, I think, as we can see, it doesn't do too irreparable harm, but the problem is you have to be doing something on the side, and I believe Monami does have a plan to do that in New York. According to their HDC website, like, he has a plan to try to build at least 400,000 homes in New York and increase supply while this rent control is going on. So the main reason why you want to do this is because, again, you're trying to stabilize the rent so that your lower income workers can still stay in the city. Obviously, you still need police, you still need firefighters. So, like, that's one of the biggest reasons why this is being implemented.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we
Yep.
go. Next up, Mr. Hunter. Go ahead.
Hello. So you know me, I'm gonna have a long intro, and I'm excited to do it. Okay, rent control, the defining slopulism proposal. Firstly, I understand why people want it. The rent keeps going up, their income doesn't. Just stop the number going up. I understand why it's motivating to people. All we're doing, though, is distracting from the simple reality that it's largely illegal to build houses in America. I've got my little YIMBY Alliance Build More Homes shirt to represent. So secondly, I'm not just here to talk about why rent control is bad. I hope we can also talk about positive solutions as to how to have rent not just freeze, but lower. Homelessness doubles when housing shifts from 20% to 50% of income. Poverty and homelessness is a policy choice, and there are shifts to ensure that people can live dignified and wealthy lives. I want to constantly reassert that my proposals aren't just disregarding people's needs. I want to upzone and liberalize zoning restrictions, implement land value taxes, create infill exceptions for environmental regulations, and reduce car-centric policies like parking minimums. I don't know why when we talk about temporary solutions, we don't talk about housing vouchers or unconditional cash transfers rather than rent control. But the fact of the matter is that to fix the long-term problems regarding rent, we need more housing. Thirdly, I am also here to talk about why rent control is bad. There are two possibilities that can occur from rent control. One, landlords will find a way to recoup costs. This might mean selling furniture, decreasing repairs, and increasing application costs. They might aggressively increase costs on uncontrolled units that they also own to cover the costs on the controlled ones. The few families who keep their place at a lower cost find themselves trapped, unable to move to the other side of town, even if they found a better job upstate. The second possibility is even worse. They don't find a way to recoup costs. This means that they will exit the housing market or transfer their units to a business complex or non-controlled single-family unit and displace their residents. This also spooks any developer looking to build more housing in the area. Wait times explode and only go to the most privileged buyers. Landlords gain a disproportionate amount of leverage. Misallocation occurs and the poor have nowhere to go, and to the streets they go. I know I'm a dirty, stinky liberal, but fun fact, I do think that housing is a right, and I think we can build a society to make sure that that happens. Anyway, I'm Hunter Kozak. Follow me on the places. Wick, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Okay, I guess the floor is your guys, and if I have questions, I'll interrupt and I'll ask my questions. But go ahead.
Okay. Did you want to tackle anything that I mentioned? I can start. I don't know. How do you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the questions I have, like, so what historical examples, I mean, that we can point out to that it does lead to more displacement, like you described, and
Yeah.
is that does that situation happen universally, or is it based on
Yeah.
the area? Because I just don't think it's historically there within the New York policy.
For sure. So
but-
I can show you a meta-analysis if you want. There were how many 60 different studies that were compiled into this resource I can show you. That showed almost universally misallocation occurs, which is essentially gentrification. I can go into what specifically misallocation means, but it really harms poor people and ensures that they don't have a place to live. There are some things that are a little bit more in flux, something like home ownership, which is I'm always kind of worried about. That sounds like it's good that homeownership is increasing, but what that actually means is that these rent stabilized apartments or rent controlled apartments are just getting converted into like single family homes so that they can only support one family rather than like 50. That tends to shift a little bit based off of the specific areas, but mobility decreases and misallocation increases almost unilaterally. Like that's guaranteed almost. I could send you the study if you want.
Oh yeah, no. So like, is like historically within New York, is that the data that shows that? Because we've already mentioned like there's been 2 freezes in New York already. Is that what came about it? Because from what I've read on it, there wasn't much of that happening. I mean, there were some loopholes that tenants were taking care of, but like there wasn't like a major shift in gentrification or anything like that.
Sure. So yeah, whenever we look at these sorts of issues, it's really hard to control for any specific factors. This is sort of like the nature of economics. It's really hard to control for any specific factors because we don't have a New York in which rent control didn't exist. But it does seem like, given a number of different analyses, I'm actually not exactly sure how these analyses are created, but we can parse through the study if you want. But essentially, it's comparing this to if the rent control didn't pass, that housing wouldn't increase as much. Housing prices wouldn't increase as much. So it's certainly the case that rent control is a muted problem. Like it's not the biggest issue. I'm not saying New York is gonna like fall into disrepair and that it's gonna explode and that like everyone's. I'm just saying it doesn't fix any issues and it probably makes things worse.
Well,
Slightly
I mean,
worse.
yeah, I agree with that. That's like not the main point of the what we're trying to solve with rent control. I
So
mean,
what
it's
are we
mainly
trying to
for
solve?
stabilization. It is a stopgap measure while you're actually solving the problem. So an example is like currently with this rent freeze, what Mondami is doing with the HTC is that they're have a plan to increase
Yeah.
homes to about 400,000 within New York.
Yeah.
So like I understand like rent control isn't a solution to the housing problem. It is just a stopgap measure to stop the current residents prevents the poor population in that region from being kicked out of their locality. So that way they can continue working their jobs. Like I said earlier, you have firefighters, policemen, emergency services that need to be able to live in the city, and if they can't afford to do that because rents are just getting crazy because it is New York and their housing market is just insane. I found out yesterday it's like $3,000 a month, which I was like, okay, that's crazy to me. But yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest reason why rent control is there is not because we're trying to solve the housing problem. We are trying to keep our current residents there while we try to solve that problem.
So I largely agree with you, and I'm obviously going to be in favor of Mamdani's plan to build more housing. Obviously, that's going to be something I'm in favor of. My big issue that I'm going to be having is, firstly, it doesn't seem to actually prevent costs, because landlords are going to find some way to recoup these costs nonetheless. They're going to I mean, I could look at a couple different things, but you keep saying that I mean, I keep pointing to different directions, so I don't know exactly where your issue is. But really, what I can say is the worst case scenario is that the residents do actually lose their housing, but it's not because of price. It's because that the housing doesn't exist anymore. It gets converted into different properties because it's not profitable to be an apartment anymore because you prevented the profit from occurring.
Well, I mean, we have to realize like not all housing in New York and most places that do rent controls, and most of the housing that like, so I think it's like 24% of New York that's actually in stabilized housing. That's the only thing this rent freeze occurs. So I mean, the best argument you can really make is that like in that situation, like they may increase the rents a little bit more on their non-rent controlled
That certainly
units.
does occur.
Yeah, and that probably will occur, but that probably lessens the bleeding for what rent control is trying to prevent,
Sure,
which is
but
like a mass exodus over like a shortfall.
yeah,
You know?
the issue is that the mass exodus is happening regardless. And I know that there are different factors that can happen, but I just want to hit the point that very specifically, these units do transfer into single family units, and the tenants of these apartment buildings do get displaced with rent control policies because it's no longer a profitable industry.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I understand that, but like New York exists. They've had stabilized units for years and years
Yeah,
now.
and people
You
get
would have,
displaced. It's a very common issue
yeah,
because of
I
these rent
understand.
stabilization or rent control policies, I would say. And it seems like I could send you a lot of these sources, but yeah, I mean, I could go over the very specific issues, like the distinctions between mobility and misallocate. Like misallocation is to me one of the biggest issues. Whatever, I don't know what specifically your issue
Just
is.
for my audience's edification, when you say misallocation,
Yeah,
elaborate.
yeah.
What
This
do you
is
mean?
yeah. This is I'll actually use the example of myself because I'm a pretty good example. My wife and I make probably around like 110 120K. We're pretty good as a household. So we actually were in a really poor part of town because it was just kind of like the only housing available, and it was way below our means. We didn't really want to live in such a dingy place, and it was very cheap. Now, this is what's called misallocation. This place, which is like a 15-minute city that opened up like 20 minutes away from our old place, this opened up and we're like, let's fucking move there. It's nice. Sure, it's more expensive, but we can accommodate those abilities. We get pushed out of those older places, and now because the demand has dropped in those specific places, rent can now decrease in those locations. So it's a really big problem when you have very wealthy individuals who can sort of just assert control and like push themselves into these like rent stabilized apartments because there's not a really big place there's not a place for them to go because we don't really focus on like luxury apartments. So they go, okay, well, I have to go somewhere. I go into these rent stabilized apartments, and then it pushes all the poor people out because the landlords obviously prefer someone with a higher income.
I mean, so like, I mean, that does occur. That also occurs in an unrent freeze market, though. Like
Yeah, but
most,
it's going to
I mean,
happen
it's
more.
typically, yes, but statistically, like most apartments that get built in city areas tend to be luxury condominiums.
Sorry,
Like
what? Say that one more time.
they end up being luxury housing usually. Most of the time, when new tenants or new builders are building, they end up building. They don't want to build low income housing. They usually tend
Well,
to, especially in free markets, build for richer
this is
constituents
just
and
just to be
physics.
super clear. Just to be super clear,
Yeah.
that's kind of like a that's kind of necessarily has to happen. That it's what's called filtering in terms of housing, where if you build um if you build a new place that no one's ever lived in, it's necessarily going to be nicer. It's going to be you can charge more. But like today's luxury apartments are tomorrow's low income apartments because eventually they're going to get run down, and then the price, hopefully, given a stabilized enough market, will lower down and accommodate for poorer individuals. So like
Well, I
I'm
want
not really concerned about high end apartments because one, it brings in higher income people to lower the demand in places in which it needs. And yeah, I don't know. I think, am I making sense? I don't. It feels like so. I like. There's a reason why kind of every economist is against rent control, and it's kind of just like obviously bad. I guess. And if you want to answer a question, why don't we just do housing vouchers? Why don't we do direct cash transfers? Like, why are we doing rent control?
just because it makes it more stable. Like like also like the funding for that is just I don't think in especially most cities it's
Yeah.
not there to do the
I
type
agree
of
the funding. I
funding that they
agree
would
the
need.
funding isn't there, but
Uh,
essentially what you're doing is you're shifting the burden from the government, who is largely the best place to shift the burden, because usually they can take it. Usually they're able to withstand that, and you're pushing it onto businesses that are 1/3 of all housing are owned by mom and pops. They're usually not going to be able to handle this the burden of not having a profit anymore. Why not shift that onto the
well,
government?
that's not the case. Like especially when if we're talking about New York, especially not the case right now because the last 3 years like they've increased. They've actually had a gain of 30% in their like revenue services like within renting. So I don't see where they're making a loss. In fact, I mean this rent control is temporary. It's only 2 years. It's
Yeah, yeah,
already
yeah.
planned. Like once it ends, they're going to get a 6% increase
Sure.
on their rent.
If your argument is this isn't that bad, it's not going to explode. Like I've said, I don't think this is going to implode New York City, but it's a bad policy that we shouldn't be implementing. And if I guess what I'm saying is if the government doesn't have the revenue to stabilize these apartments, what is your idea on why do you think that that a business would be able to? Like some small rinky dink apartment complex, their business, why would they be able to withstand that shock in their prices, but the city government couldn't? Like how we have to recognize if you don't have the budget, why do you think they would?
Well, because it's spread out among those renters. Not every renter is a mom and pop, like especially in
No, no,
Newark.
no.
But
Sure, sure,
also a
sure,
lot of
sure.
these
But
stabilized units are
there are
also not in the same build. They're in the same building with non-stabilized units. So most of the time, these people can and still have market rates inside the unit that they're in.
okay.
Just they have a certain apartment units that are only stabilized. So I mean, I don't see like them taking that much of a hit. I mean, if it's temporary, and especially
Yeah.
since they're going to recoup their
Look,
costs, and they've already got 30% from the last 3 years during COVID.
okay. Look, okay. There's a couple things that you threw out there. Firstly, um,
Yeah.
the I agree that not every housing business is going to be able to, or is not going to withstand the shock. Sorry, I agree that most of these housing businesses are able to withstand the shock, but some of them won't. And some of them are going to go out of business and they're going to sell their properties, and no one's going to want to get into apartment complexes because it's clearly not profitable because rent control has stipulated that it's not profitable. So they're going to shift into the other burdens. They're going to do different things with the land. Maybe they'll turn it into a restaurant. Maybe they'll turn it into a business. Maybe they'll turn it into a single family home. Anything that's not rent controlled where the profit is debilitated. Like I
Well, I
don't
mean, that would, in my opinion, that would be just like so. I believe in New York to have stabilized units, you kind of agree to it when you're building the property.
but you don't
That would be short sighted of the workers there if they don't realize that it
wait,
could
why?
possibly freeze for
It's
2
more
years. It's
profitable
happened multiple times.
it's more profitable to build a business instead. Just build land that's like a little, one of those like little malls. I forget the name of it, but it's essentially business units that like, you could have a small business up just rent a room in there.
Well,
And
I
it's
mean,
like that's
these
not rent
buildings that
controlled, so why
also
wouldn't they do
choose to
that?
have I mean these buildings that also choose again to have the rent stabilized units in their apartment get a tax write off. They pay like very little in taxes when they have those stabilized units, so they're also being compensated
Wait,
for
wait, wait,
that.
wait, 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 wait. You're I think you're sort of I don't think you can really have it both ways. Like, is the government able to withstand the shock, or can't they? Like, are they
They
stabilizing the apartment because they can withstand the shock, or are they not?
I mean, yeah, they are because like
Okay, so
that's what
then
I'm
why
trying to
don't we
say. Like
just
they
do
have
housing transfers or housing vouchers? I mean, and the reason why
because
we want to do housing vouchers is that doesn't crimp the profit of um it doesn't short the profit of the housing businesses. And when those profits are shorted, then they have to transfer to a different like they have to shift somewhere else.
well, they're not losing profit though. I've already described like they've increased their revenues 30% in 3 years. That's way above inflation. They're
Okay,
they're
no,
not
no,
losing any money.
no, sure. But rent control stipulates that they lose money, right? That's legally they have to lose money. That's what it's saying.
No, that's not like not necessarily like especially that depends on how much their costs are. If their costs are lower than even like if they're just so
Okay.
if I own a house and like I rent it out and the market's brought the
You're saying if
marking
the
up to where I
you're
can
Hold on.
charge for
Let,
$2,000,
hold on. Hold
$3,000, my
on.
cost hasn't increased.
Just to kind of maybe bridge the gap and translate, what Hunter is saying is that they are not allowed to make past a certain point. So any unrealized profit that they could have made past that certain point, they will lose out on because of the rent control. So in that manner, they will lose money. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, I understood that. I'm just saying like
Okay.
they're not making enough money to keep their building or you know pay for their own bills or anything like that. That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
argue.
but wait, hold on. Why are you saying that? Because if they like what the studies demonstrably show is that that does happen. They convert these units if they can't recoup their costs. If they lose profits, then they shift or they go bankrupt, and then no one wants that apartment building anymore. So someone buys the
No,
land and then builds a church on
well,
top of it.
no. If they lost too much money to where they couldn't like actually hold the building,
Yeah.
that's not profit. That would just be their cost that they couldn't make their
Okay.
costs. That's not the case. If you're telling me that the reason that they can't make more money on that unit and they're upset about it, so they want to convert it, I mean that's not necessarily something they have to do. That's something they want to do because they want
Yeah,
to make more money.
but yes, of course. But whenever it comes to policy, we're talking about the way that we can encourage incentivization. Like, obviously, if they're incentivized to build different types of housing, they're going to build different types of housing. Shouldn't we encourage them to build housing because we need housing?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier,
Cool.
though.
So when
That's
you
why New
say
York gives you the tax
it might be
write-off when you
profitable to do a
agree to
different
have the
thing.
stabilized
Hold
unit.
on, Hunter, let him finish,
Okay,
please.
sorry,
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying like that's the reason why New York, when they a tenant agree or a landlord agrees to make these stabilized units, that they go into a contract and they give them a tax write-off on all their properties. That's the reason why they do that. That's an incentive to do stabilized housing.
Yeah, but it's
landlords that have that currently chose to do it.
what do you mean they chose to do it? What do you mean they chose to do it?
That you don't if you go in New York, you don't have to agree to make the stabilized units for the tax write-off. You don't have to.
Wouldn't hold on.
The only ones that were mandated were the ones that are built in 1945. But if anybody built like a tenant building and chose to put stabilized units in their apartments, then
I don't know
do
enough
the
about
tax
New York
write-off.
policy, but this
Well, out
these
of
are all
curiosity,
opted
because I
in.
don't know either. Magic, maybe you do. When they signed up, or they built the stabilized housing, was it under the condition and understanding that the government would freeze their rents?
That I'm not sure of. I'd have to look that one up.
Yeah, wait, hold
Because
on. Sorry,
that matters, I think, to this conversation.
I will be honest. I just used AI to ask this question so we can double check its sources. I'm going to be honest. But it does say, I'm just going to read what it says and then it shows the source and we can investigate it further. No, landlords cannot choose to opt in or opt out of rent stabilization in New York City. Whether an apartment is rent stabilized is determined strictly by state housing laws, not the landlord's preference. An apartment is generally rent stabilized if it meets the following criteria. And then it gives a list called rent stabilized building lists. How to find out if your apartment is rent stabilized. So it seems like if it meets a certain amount of criteria, you're legally obligated to not increase your the rent past a certain point, and it shows these points: $2,000 if a tenant initially moved into the apartment between these years, and these years, whether or not a tenant moved into an apartment, that's not under your control as a landlord.
It says here, like, it says tax abatements. New buildings often become rent stabilized if a developer owner chooses to participate in a specific government tax incentive program.
Okay.
These both
But
might be
that's
true,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
yeah,
Those aren't
These
mutually
both might
exclusive.
be true.
It's possible to specifically like if you see that I would be surprised if opting into these rent stabilized units if the subsidization covers that, because it feels like it really probably wouldn't. Um,
Yeah,
but that's
I would be shocked if everyone who owns
because the
a
question is, why
stabilized
wouldn't we always?
property
Yeah, why did they do that?
always knew it was A, going to be stabilized, and B, that the stabilized property would be under rent freezes on occasion.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I'm not sure. And yeah,
Okay, but let's just say it is. Let's just say it is. And the one of the things is if it's built in a specific area that's in high need. Okay? Is that a reasonable assumption that we can make?
you repeat what you just said.
That if you can choose to build housing wherever you want, but if you build it in a specific area, which is it is under their control, it becomes rent stabilized. Is that a fair assumption that we can make?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're decreasing the amount of profit, are we incentivizing them to build elsewhere outside of where is a need?
I'm well. You could be. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure Mom Dami is. That's what his plan is. But
No,
if
no,
you're
no, no.
asking me, like specifically within rent control, I don't think so.
So
No.
you should when Mamdani talks about building housing, he's not talking about public housing. I could be mistaken on this. I haven't really looked over his specific proposal, but generally when we're talking about
I,
building housing, we're talking about housing permits because building housing goes through an enormous amount of red tape to like
the government almost certainly isn't building the housing,
no,
but I
of
could be
course.
wrong.
No, and
yeah.
that's why I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But when we're
I
talking
mean,
about
here's the
400,000
article.
units, we're talking about um, fast tracking them through the red tape is approving permits,
Could
which
be wrong. I'll have to check.
I
Let
would
me give
I
me
would I would
Oh,
definitely bet money
well,
that it's
here's
not.
Yeah,
here's
DM
the
me the
here's the
source. Magic, just DM me the source. And
here's the article from
yeah,
Mondani.
DM it to
I
me
just
and I'll
had a
look over it.
problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll look over it and I can confirm either way. Thank you, sir. Let me read it. It's going to take a minute. Continue to talk, so we're not
Sure.
sitting in silence.
Sure. Well, yeah. Anyway, it's 100% passing permits. And why would a developer choose to like if it's a rent stabilized location, why would they choose to build in that location? Why wouldn't they choose elsewhere? They're like, hey, we can make way more money building luxury apartments. Let's build elsewhere outside
Well,
of these specific areas that are in need.
Well, that's the thing about, and then the unique thing about New York, I can't speak, New York, because like I said earlier, like these apartments are not all stabilized. Like generally, it's only a certain number within the
Uh,
unit, and then like the rest of the apartment can literally be stabilized units.
okay,
So
so
like
what's
that, they
the
still make a ton of money on top of having the stabilized unit where they get the tax write off as
okay,
well.
so what's the make or break for stabilization? How do you predict whether or not it's going to be stabilized?
How do I predict?
How does a
Obviously,
developer predict?
how does it?
Can they?
I'm not sure how they
Okay.
predict that.
So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's fine. We can go over either way. If you can't predict it, then um, they're not going to be incentivized to build in those specific areas. That because if at any moment their profit is curbed, then they're not going to choose in a place. It spooks developers because they're like, why the fuck would I build in New York City? Because they're just going to slash rent freezes all the time. I'll go build in Omaha instead. And they go shift their business elsewhere from New York to Omaha, and they build in places. Sorry, I shouldn't use Omaha. I should use Austin, Texas, or like the places that actually are trying to revitalize housing, but that don't have these rent control policies that are constantly being invoked, and they go build elsewhere. And it's like, why are we encouraging that type of behavior?
Okay, so as I understand it, and I'm mostly through the article, but this is a hybrid plan. So some of it is public housing. It's literally the
Okay,
government is building this. But a large portion of it
it's housing
is fast
permits
tracking through the development process.
for
I'm
sure,
looking for exact numbers,
for
right?
sure.
But that's the understanding I get. But go ahead.
But yeah, I just want to point out we're just disincentivizing developers. That's all we're doing is we're saying you can't make profit on this. and so they go, "Fuck you! I'll go operate in a different city. Why am I working here then?" And like there are ways. Like I really want to hit this. There are a lot of ways that we can we can fix this issue. There are temporary solutions. Like we can housing vouchers are going to be the number one thing that I talk about, or unconditional cash transfers towards people with lower income. Rent control is shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, a lot of the things that you got to realize, like New York, especially when it comes to building, like I mean, if we're specifically talking about New York, I mean, obviously these kinds of policies are going to be if the shoe fits in the area you're working in. So, like
So
in New York, though, I feel like it makes sense, just strategically from what the landlords have made, the amount of space they have. They don't really have a lot of space to like places like Austin doing well because they have the ability to do like sprawl and stuff like that, where New York can't. It's kind of stuck on an island. So building is a lot harder in that sense, especially when new builders do come in. Most of the time when you see it with new buildings, they're going to be luxury apartments. They're not going to be lower income apartments
that's
for these
fine.
people that are specifically on stabilized
It's gonna
housing.
filter out and lower the supply in the places that are in need. You build where it's needed.
So
That's
so
like
so currently, yeah, but I get that. That's the long term of it. But like, what do you do in the meantime if rent
like I
skyrockets to the
said,
point if you
housing.
don't control the market and rent spikes up to a point to where all your lower income are just on the street, or you increase your housing or your
Okay,
homeless population? What
so
do you do?
first off, I agree that these are long-term solutions, and maybe that's sort of a frustration with democracy writ large, is that a lot of these solutions do take 5 to 10 years to actually implement. Now, that is if we don't have the social capital, or sorry, if we don't have the political capital. If we have the political capital and we could genuinely fast track this red tape, you can get buildings up in 1 to 2 years. Like it is really, really crazy how fast we can build stuff if we don't consistently have like environmental regulations for infill exceptions. Like you really can build this quickly, and that is what I'm suggesting. But if we're talking about like 1 to 2 years, yeah, have housing vouchers. Make it means tested, so it's for people who make under, I don't know, 30, 40K. I don't know what the number is. Probably under the poverty line, maybe the
Well, it's
bottom
New
of
York
the.
Well,
City, so that number might have to
Sure,
be
sure,
a
sure,
little
sure,
higher.
sure.
yeah,
That's fair. That's fair.
in New York, that's about less than
No, no, no.
80,000.
Sure, sure, sure. I agree that obviously there's going to be some inflation adjusted based off of the city, and that housing is more expensive in New York City for sure. But like, it seems like, yeah, and the problem with that solution is that it's expensive. I actually don't know if it's feasible, but I would rather not shoot myself in the foot. And if we're talking about some solutions, maybe the answer is, and maybe it's not, maybe it is. We would have to look at specific cases. It depends on the city. Maybe there are no short-term solutions. Maybe there actually aren't any short-term solutions because they don't have the budget. It's way too costly. It's way too there's also a huge issue with cash transfers, which it's the administrative burden is very high on stuff like that, especially when it's means tested. If you don't have the resources, maybe we don't have a short-term solution, but we do have a long-term solution, and this is going to fix itself in 5 years, and we're going to have a thriving, equitable city in 5 years with cheap housing everywhere. And
Hold on. This is for you, Hunter.
yeah,
So let's say that they don't have the means to do housing vouchers.
sure,
The administrative costs, the budget constraints is
yeah,
just not feasible for them to
yes,
do. Um, why not do rent control for a limited period of time? Realizing that it's long term going to be bad, but it's like medication, right? There are
sure,
some medicines that you need
hmm
for a short amount of time to stop yourself from dying or losing a limb. But if you just kept taking the medication afterwards forever, it's going to destroy you.
yeah.
But you just don't do that. You
So
just stop.
sure, sure, sure. There are very, 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 very targeted rent control policies that, like Vienna, for example, that uses rent control on like pre-World War II houses. What you really don't want to do is have rent control on new housing because then developers are going to be spooked. Because in Vienna, they're like, hey, if you've built this for 80 years and you've gotten a profit off of 80 years, yeah, we're going to start curbing it. And developers are never that long term minded. They're like, well, we can make a profit in 80 years and then I'm not even going to be living back then. Who cares? That's not their mentality. So if you have rent control on new apartments, what you're doing is you're disincentivizing people to move in and fix that issue. So no, like the way that, and I'm specifically looking at Mamdani's policy, you are disincentivizing developers from developing in your area. And it's not a short-term solution. It is shooting yourself in the foot. And can you survive after shooting yourself in the foot? Yeah, you can. You're probably going to need to go to the hospital. You're probably going to need to fix some issues to fix the issue that you just wrought onto yourself. But I'm not saying New York is gonna explode. New York's been through rent freezes before, but it's always damaging yourself. Why are we doing this?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the reason why they're doing that, again, it's like I've said before, is because they want to keep the actual people that live there. I mean, I have this problem too in the rural South. Like,
but-
we have a lot of people moving here from other places, driving up housing costs. People in my area, in the rural area, that you wouldn't even think the housing has doubled. People can't, like, people that were born here can't even afford to buy a house that they from a place they live. Like, even a trailer is too
Yeah,
expensive.
I get it.
So
I get it. But
so like so like that's what the solution is. So what your solution at this point would be, like, if we didn't do it or we did the other thing. I like the other thing, by the way. I don't hate it, but like I think rent control just makes sense because that's within the power of Mamdani, and your solution assumes we get rid of all the red tape at the same time, which isn't possible because it's bureaucracy and it's going to take forever to get rid of zoning laws, especially in a place like New York.
I hate this idea that like we can pass rent control, but we can't pass infill exceptions.
I'm not saying we
That's-
can't pass it. I'm saying it's hard to get, because
Not
we
harder
not
to
only do
get
we have to do
through.
that, we also have to get rid of zoning. We have to get rid of all the red
We need
tape.
social and political capital, and right now there's people. Unfortunately, I started to throw mud around, but there's people like you who are like, no, we can't do it. We can't do it. And I'm like, hold on. There are huge. We can overturn Prop 13. There are a lot.
I'm not
of things
saying
that
we can't do it.
that are fundamentally way easier to do than rent control. But rent control sounds easy, and there's also pundits behind it. And that really frustrates me when there are pundits who are like, no, yeah, hell yeah, this is awesome, rather than shifting towards the easier solutions that fix it better.
Yeah, I didn't say we couldn't do it. I was saying the time it takes and how many people would we
No, but
lose. How
it's
many people that were
because we don't have the
native-born New
political
Yorkers
capital.
have to move 2 hours out of the city that they were born in.
Say that one more time.
I mean, no, I didn't say we couldn't do that. I'm saying that what you're suggesting
said about-
takes a lot more political capital and a lot more time and a lot more effort, and it's going to take. I agree with it, by the way. I think
said-
what you're saying
You
is
said New
good.
Yorkers
You know,
move out of
like,
the area, and I don't know what you meant by that.
oh, so like, assuming we do it your way and we try to do that thing, the time it takes by the time we get there to we get to what you want to do, then we will probably have lost a lot of native New Yorkers from that area. The people that actually built the city, the people that make that place a city as it is. That's what the goal of rent control is trying to prevent. It's
Yeah,
trying to prevent that from happening while they find that solution, which is like something like your solution, where you're trying to advocate
Sure,
for. But rent
the-
control is the way we stop the bad things from happening to the good people that live there.
Yeah, the aggravating thing is it's almost like I'm looking at McDonald's prices and I'm going, this is too much for a burger. And you're like, how do we fix this? And I go, I don't know. We can look at labor supply. We can look at where how to make burgers. I don't know. I'm trying to grapple. I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm sort of coming at solutions. And you're like, why don't we just burn the fucking restaurant down? And I go, I don't think
I'm
that
not saying-
fixes anything. I actually don't.
I'm not saying
No,
I don't
no,
think it
I'm
burns-
just saying. I'm
no.
just saying it's a short-term solution that only harms us. And you're saying, and I'm like, I don't know if there's a short-term solution. There might be things that are harder to do because we don't have the political will behind them. Because this is complicated. This is a hard thing to do. Obviously, it's going to be easier for people to get behind a policy where it's just stop the number going up. I have to explain what an infill exception is. That's hard to do on a global scale. Like it's really hard to get that political motivation behind it, but that does fix the housing solution. And when we just go put the number down, I don't know how else to say it. But wait. Hold
So
on.
what? I mean, my question was, what's wrong with rent control? That is, like you said, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all both agree that it's not a long-term solution, and it does have
Sure.
negative consequences in the short term. While we're doing that, why not implement those solutions that you're talking about? What's wrong with rent control to prevent the
Sure.
people from getting harmed while we try to solve
You
what you're
keep-
arguing for, which is deregulation on the zoning laws,
Right,
so we
right.
can actually do the building that you want to do?
The issue is that it doesn't prevent tenants from getting harmed. It doesn't at all. In fact, it increases homelessness because very often, if the businesses can't recoup their costs, the developed buildings get transferred into different types of units. They go into business. They don't care about housing anymore. They're like, it's not profitable here. So actually, imagine an apartment building it's basically just one landlord who's over 20 apartment units in New York City, and he gets hit with the rent control, and he's like, I can't make this work anymore. And so he basically he exits the housing market. He tells everyone to leave out of the building, and he converts it. He spends quite a bit of money. He gets a loan, and he converts it into a business. And he's like, maybe a McDonald's has to live here instead because this isn't profitable anymore to go into housing. I have
Well, I
to
mean,
find something else to do with the land.
historically, that does not happen in
It
a
does
big
happen.
way in
It
New
does
York
happen.
City.
It does happen. I can show a number of.
I mean,
different
I'm not
studies
saying it
that-
doesn't happen. I'm saying it doesn't happen as much. And then,
but it
okay,
no,
we're
but
going into
it
a world
harms-
where rich stabilization doesn't exist. How do you know this still doesn't just happen and on a bigger level without it?
Say that one more time.
I said, how do you? So we don't live in a world where New York doesn't have rent stabilization. How do you know if it didn't have rent stabilization, this just wouldn't happen on a larger scale?
Yeah, I mean, do you trust the science? We can pull up the data to look at I don't know specifically how the economists determined controlled for this. I don't know. We can look at the studies together, but the meta-analysis is pretty clear on this. And if we need to go through all of these studies, I don't know, do you it sometimes feels like it's the anti-science party. If I were to doing this about hey, vaccines are safe, here's all these studies, and you're like, well, how do they really know? How do they really control for this? Because it's not like the same person can be given a vaccine and the same person can be given not a vaccine, because that's impossible. And I go, yeah, there's only so much we can be doing here, but there's also thousands of cities that have implemented these policies, and we can track immigration, we can track a lot of different information, and then sort of extrapolate from those problems. And it seemed like there are people, economists have a job to do this, and they've kind of made it clear that it does increase costs. Not just for not just for non-stabilized units, but also the stabilized units, the controlled units. They actually have more costs. It just gets filtered into different places because they'll just remove the furniture. They sell the furniture and they're like, go buy your own. And it's like, well, what fucking good was it preventing me from getting $100 when now I have to spend $1,000 on a new couch? You know what I'm saying? They find ways to recoup the cost.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I agree they do that. Like I said, one of the things that I mentioned earlier was most likely they would increase the non-stabilized units just a little bit more to recoup that cost. People that most likely can afford it because they live in a
100%.
non-stabilized unit.
Let me read a couple. Let me read a couple super chats here. Speaking of recouping costs, $5 from my listening library to say Kavanaugh said to try to overturn it through the House and Senate, didn't he? Well, this is back to the birthright citizenship thing. Yes, he ruled against the executive order on the federal because of a federal bill that was passed in the 1950s, but he did not rule against it constitutionally. But still, even without Kavanaugh, it was still ruled against 5-4. Fair enough. Testicle Johnson for $2. Tax the poor. Okay. And then $5 from Black Pilled Kiwi. Silly to talk about housing vouchers when Mamdani only balanced the city budget by horse trading his endorsement of Hochul. Hochul, sorry. Hochul for more funding from Albany. Thank you for the $5. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It might not be feasible financially. Yeah, I agree. It might not. Yeah, for sure.
I got a question for you, Mr. Magic. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned that one of the fears that you have is that without rent control, you're going to have implants from out of state come in, take the new housing that gets there, and the poor people and the more lower middle class are going to be driven out because all these new influx of people are coming in to get the houses. Is that an accurate reading of what you said?
Yeah, that's accurate because like that's what I've experienced in my current area that I currently live
Yeah, you
as
know
well.
why?
Like,
You know why you've experienced that? Because there isn't fucking housing for those implants. Like people are gonna be moving into New York. There's not a way to stop that. It's the thriving
Would you
center of
advocate
the
for building a wall
country.
to stop them from coming in?
No, would not.
Maybe we need to turn away those.
But
They're taking our jobs, okay? In New York City,
this fucking
okay.
bullshit nativism really does irk me. That you're only a New York native if you're if you were born here. It's genuinely the same sort of nativism that haunts the MAGA movement, where it's like, well, I came here 3 generations ago, and that means that no one else can move here. It's like fucking 50 years ago, you sailed here on Ellis Island.
no,
I'm comparing it to New York though, because look, we're all fucking immigrants, okay? We're all white. No one's here Native American. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Speak
I don't
for
know.
yourself. White.
True.
I'm spiritually. Okay,
I apologize.
I won't make that joke.
I apologize. We've got fucking Elizabeth Warren over there. No. But look, people are gonna move into New York City. Of course they want to. It's a thriving business capital of the world. I would say it's like capital of the world. It's huge. Of course, there's so much business opportunity there. Why not just fucking build housing for the people that move there? Why are we disincentivizing people from moving there? All we're doing is we're shutting down businesses because now they can't move people in. It feels like obviously we should be striving for mobility. And the one thing that mobility, I could show you this this chart. Negative mobility is associated with rent control. So fucking clear. 26 out of 26 studies show that there's a negative correlation with mobility and rent control. Sorry,
okay,
I said a lot.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, like, I'm absolutely okay with that. Like, so, like, I take a little, like,
Hold on,
go,
just
like,
to be
yeah, I
clear,
get
just to be
it.
clear, just to be clear, what are you okay with?
I'm okay with mobility dropping if it means
Okay, fair
saving
enough. I
people,
just wanted to make
native
sure
people to that area, because like that would.
Wait, hold on. It doesn't just harm the people who are trying to move in. It also harms the people there. Because what if someone there is like two different options? There's a lot of different options that this hurts. But like, what if someone's like, I want to build a business. I want to make. I have a nice taco place. I have a street taco. I actually want to build. I want to have a place, and I want workers here. But he can't hire any workers because no one's moving there.
Well,
he doesn't get to build a business anymore.
Assuming most of those people in stabilized housing probably need a job. I mean, no, that would be fine with.
No,
there's plenty of people already in New York,
but they have a job, and he's not asking
What's the
for
unemployment
much.
rate in New York City? I'm really curious. Let me check.
But when we decrease mobility, what we also do is decrease mobility. This is the biggest issue with rent control is it traps people in this city in the apartment that is rent controlled, because they are completely disincentivized to move anywhere else, even if they have better employment opportunities. Like if they finally, like, let's say they're a college student, but they got a biology degree, but they really never found anything, so they have to work at the Walmart nearby, but they found something in Albany. Well, guess what?
Yeah, you gotta let Magic
Sorry.
answer some of these
Go
questions.
ahead. I apologize.
And just in case anyone else was wondering, just a factoid, the New York City unemployment rate is currently 5.7%. So there you go. But go ahead.
So I mean, like, so what I was saying, like, earlier, so like the reason why I take the native people there are important, and we can't just like, again, that's what makes New York New York. Those people that have made those communities. At the social cost of what you're suggesting will probably happen without rent control there. Seeing how like 80% of them can't afford a one-time cost if something happens, like they're just gonna end up on the street. You're increasing the homeless population, and you're gonna kick them out. That's what happens. That's what's happening here in the rural South in certain areas, depending on where these people are moving to. Especially, that's actually where those people are coming from. The people that are driving up my costs are the people that are been driven out of New York because of the cost there.
Those immigrants, yeah.
No, genuinely, like, these are nativist talking points. Like, a rising tide lifts all the boats. Like, if immigration is one of the key factors for
Non-New Yorkers won't replace us. Non-New Yorkers won't replace. Okay, never mind.
Ooh.
It's not that. It's not even anti-immigrant sentiment. It's just that you have to wait your turn while we build the housing. I don't care. I lived here first for like 10, 20, 30 plus years. I was here first. I shouldn't be kicked out because you want to live here.
Yeah, you shouldn't be coming here illegally. You got to wait your fucking turn. You got to wait here.
No, I
until
don't
we
care
figure
about.
out the
I don't care
laws.
about immigration.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Genuinely, what's
The difference is you're allowed once we build the housing.
Yeah, and
Once
you're
we
allowed
get
once
once
you
we
wait your
actually
fucking
solve the
hold on.
problem.
Yeah, once we
The other people's solution is never to let them in because they're non-Americans.
No. How about we liberalize the border and we ensure that wait times decrease, because waiting 10 years does suck. But you got to wait 10 years until we fix the issue, and then maybe you can wait 2 years instead next time.
For one, not all these immigrants are moving to these places, and I would tell you, like, most of the people moving here are natives. Like, I'm not talking about immigrant population.
I know you're not talking about immigration, but I'm saying your arguments are word for word the exact same nativist arguments that the MAGA movement uses. It is anti-immigrant. It is pro-nativist. It is anti-economical. Like, every single economist will say that immigration is good. Like, it's not like there are these like conservative MAGA it's not like economists are so conservative that that's the reason why they're against rent control. They also see immigration as a net benefit.
Yeah, but again, not all these people moved to New York are like I said, immigrant. Like, I know you're relating it to that because the talking points are similar. But like, I'm not arguing against immigration. Most of the people that move to these places are richer. Like, I remember having one lady that moved here from Chicago, and she says she works from home and she makes like $8,000 a month, which is unheard of in my area.
Sure.
Because she can buy a house for like $200,000 and pay almost nothing in her housing costs.
We are just FYI, gang, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. But 8,000 a month, we are nearing that on this channel, and one day we will get to that. We're still a little further behind than I'd like, but we are inching closer, and I just want to let that know. $10, speaking of getting money, $10 from Gregio. How do you balance the instability that being priced out of housing creates for families versus the damage to the market that rent control creates? Go ahead, Magic.
How do I balance it? I mean, like, because those problems, like, I mean, they've had rent control and rent freezes there multiple times. That those problems that are created are there because of the supply problem. And as long as you have a solution to the supply problem, if you do have to do a rent freeze because you're worried about people being kicked out of their, like, where they're from,
they're gonna get kicked. I've said this multiple
obviously
times.
rent control is not the solution to housing. I've already mentioned that in my first opening.
I know you said it's a temporary solution and that we should build more housing. I acknowledge that. But it's also not a temporary solution either, because it also pushes tenants out. It pushes.
I guess my
out.
question, just real quick, my question, because I want to allow you the chance, Magic, to kind of explain to me, right, and explain to my audience, what is the difference between what you're advocating for and people who are anti-immigrant? Like, what is the fundamental distinction that you would say it makes these situations different, right?
One of the biggest things is, like, well, we don't know where all these immigrants are moving to, and I don't believe it's all the massive, like, city centers of the USA is where they're moving to. They're moving to all different places. We have plenty of land and plenty of different states. So, like, unless you can prove to me that, like, they're all moving to one place to have that same issue where it's just causing costs to go crazy up everywhere, or in those specific population centers, then it's just not the same.
Okay, so here's what's crazy about this. What was the is it Dearborn, Michigan? What was the one that JD Vance was talking about, Haitian? Do you remember where they were eating the cats?
I don't know the exact one, but I think it was Ohio or Colorado.
Sure,
I
think it was somewhere in the Midwest. Whatever. I'm gonna be talking about that city. I think it was called Dearborn. I could be wrong. I don't really remember.
It could be great though. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm gonna call it Dearborn. That might not be the name of the city, but that city had a huge increase, a huge influx of Haitian refugees. And because they didn't build more housing to support those Haitian refugees, a lot of people were going, get them the fuck out of here, because housing costs have now increased dramatically. And there was a whole bunch of aggressive sentiment towards these immigrants, because it's like, well, you just fucking got here. Get the hell out of here. Housing is for us. when housing can actually be for everyone. But like, how is that different? Because they actually did, the Haitian refugees did filter into like one specific place, probably because of chain migration, right? That like their dad or something, I don't know. Like usually when
No, I think Dearborn was specifically that there was a factory there that was specifically hiring a lot of Haitian
Sure.
immigrants, like intentionally.
Okay, is
But-
that, would you be in favor of what the conservatives were saying then? Get the fuck out of our city?
Not particularly, because like the problems in that area are different. Like they have a lot more ability to sprawl, and the government there has a lot more space
But
to
they didn't
build.
build. But they
New
didn't
York
build.
doesn't.
Wait, hold on. You can always build up, right? Upzoning is that.
Well, yeah, I mean, is
I would've-
Dearborn, Michigan, like is that the state municipalities like is that like do they not want to build, or is it what was the issue?
Yeah, they
there?
don't want to build for the exact same reason that New York doesn't want to build, because it decreases property values, and 66%, 65% of Americans are homeowners, and they don't want to see their property value go down. That's the basic
Yeah,
reality of this.
I
It's
mean,
like,
I agree with you on NIMBYism. I hate NIMBYism. So
Okay, well, hold on. Isn't rent control just NIMBYism?
no, no, it's not, because what you're saying is there's no ability for us to actually do that building. Like when New York, the rent control is there is because they can't do the massive amounts of building. But a place
No, but they
like Dearborn,
can,
Michigan,
they
probably has a ton of
absolutely
land
can.
they can build on.
Here's the frustrating part when you look at New York City. I saw a stat the other day. I might be flubbing this stat. I might have to look it up again. I didn't write it down in my notes, but it was something like 70% of skyscrapers that currently exist in New York are illegal to build now. That you just can't build that high anymore. So you can build, it's illegal to. You can all, like, there's so much space upwards. Like, let's look at the skyscrapers that exist in New York. They can facilitate so many fucking people. Like, I don't know. There's so much space upwards.
I agree with you that all the zoning laws need to be redone, and I agree.
Okay, cool. No. But you
Just,
said the
we're not
distinction
in
between
argument there.
You said the distinction between Dearborn and New York is that Dearborn has places for them to build. New York does too. They can build up.
Yeah, but
$20.
you have. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll let
Go
you
ahead.
respond in a second. But $20 from Adam Defunded to say there's an easy fix, but neither side really sees it that way. We should focus on states' rights that empower individuals and get rid of every kind of tax we face as people, like state tax, city tax, sales tax, federal tax. I'm not sure if I agree with you.
How is
sir,
the
but-
libertarian not on my side? That's what really irritates me. I'm talking about like liberalizing red tape and zoning regulations. And they're like,
$2 from Robert Paulson, 8K a month, and your mic still sucks. Love you. Again, we're not at 8K yet. We are getting there. Okay, I need more of your support in order to pull that off. But anyway, Magic, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, like, I would agree if rent stabilization was something that Dearborn wanted to do, that would probably be decent for the short term. But they would have to solve their problems that I'm talking. Me and you both agree on the problems, which is they have to fix zoning. They have to get rid of the cultural NIMBYism that we have in our country.
Yes, sorry, you're sort of shifting away from the conversation that I wanted to have, which is you were saying that like essentially you don't really care about these people coming in, and then we need to focus on ourselves. And I was saying, isn't that the exact same sentiment that conservatives had in Dearborn, Ohio, or wherever the fuck it was? Like, isn't it like what is the distinction between your nativism and their nativism?
Well, I don't think mine's a nativist position. Like just because I don't want people that currently live there to be kicked out of their homes.
Hold on, you've made arguments that it's native
Yeah, you don't
New York.
care about. Yeah, you don't care about people who are recent immigrants.
Yeah, I don't care about them being able to move into New York specifically, not anywhere else.
Right.
Like,
Oh, and also the Haitian stuff was Springfield.
the
Ohio.
difference is I don't care. I don't
Michigan,
hate immigrants or people coming in. The difference is they would always view people coming in as bad. I don't view people coming in as bad.
Yeah,
I view if people are coming in and it causes an issue where native people that are currently living, and here's when I will make the native argument. The people that are currently live there might lose their homes because of it.
Okay,
and that's the issue that I have.
Okay, so if
I don't mind immigration at all.
So if members of Springfield, Ohio, are like, look, I'm usually in favor of immigrants, but I really can't fucking stand these Haitians coming in, not because they're Haitians, but because they're coming in. And they're taking all my homes, and now prices are going up, and I have nowhere to live. Do you think that's justified?
Well, because they're if you're saying because they're Haitians, I mean, they'd
No, no, no,
immediately
no, no.
just
I'm
view
saying
them
not
as
because they're
racist.
Haitians. No,
But
no, no, not because they're
oh,
Haitians, but because I'm seeing all of these people suddenly immigrate into my town. Man, this used to be such a nice, quaint town. Suddenly, it's like a thriving city, and rent keeps going up. Fuck these guys. Not them because they're Haitian, but because they're moving here. Just like go back to your own place. Go back to where you came from. I
no,
don't
I
mind
mean
you. I
that's
just want you. I want you away from here.
well, I never say go back to where you came from, but like I get
You know?
the crossover there, but the argument there is like I don't hate immigration,
Hold
and I
on.
don't think
What would you
the
suggest?
solution isn't to kick those people out of their homes. And my solution would be preferably in a perfect world that we build more housing. That way we can have both.
Great. I agree. Why? Then why did you have all of those like I don't really fuck what were you saying about the transplants or implants? What are they called again? I don't live in New York.
I didn't even call them that. You guys called them that. I just called them
What are they
people
often
moving
called?
in.
Transplants. They're called transplants.
Yeah, transplants. What didn't you have an issue with transplants?
I don't have an issue with them directly. I have I'm just
Okay,
saying
but
that we
what would
can't
you
kick native people out because they're moving in.
Yes, obviously we shouldn't be kicking the native people out because they're moving in. Obviously there should be space for everyone. Obviously we should build housing where it's needed and then facilitate that I feel like I'm talking and so like I don't know if my message is getting across, but like yes, obviously. I don't but like it doesn't have to be this either or situation. We can actually just build enough housing for everyone.
Yeah, and that's
And
what I
I know you
argue
keep
for.
agreeing. I know you keep agreeing, but you also keep having these like yeah, okay, whatever. We can
I
shift
mean,
away from the
well,
transplant.
this the main disagreement is whether we rent control is a temporary solution or is not. It's like the main contention we have. It seems.
Sure. Okay. Okay, if I sent you this study that very clearly states that construction decreases, housing quality decreases, misallocation increases, supply decreases. Like what would you say? Do you think that meta-analysis is incorrect or do you think that's a worthwhile situation?
I mean, I would so like if we're just looking at a free market principle, then that might be accurate. But that's I mean, if we're looking at what Donnie is trying to do, he's actually building the housing. Like he's going to have the
Hold on.
government build some of the housing.
We're
You
obviously
have to have some kind of solution in the mean term.
Yeah, but
In the
this is obviously all else equal. This is obviously like we're not taking the situation in which rent control happens and then they don't build housing and then they build housing and rent control happens. Obviously, it would be preferable for them to build more housing even if rent control is stipulated. The conversation is should we build more homes and not do rent control or build more homes and do rent control? And it seems like that's what we're comparing against. In those circumstances, misallocation increases, supply decreases, construction decreases, housing quality decreases because they don't have a profit to start dipping into to fix your sink if it's broken. They just go, you got to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that they think that it's more value to go deal with that than to have other people on the street in a larger number than what would happen otherwise.
Yeah, but homelessness does increase. Homelessness does increase with rent controlled units.
It's always going to that's always going to increase.
No.
The potential for more is
no. It's going to increase all else equal. I can send you the studies. It's going to increase all else equal. That fewer supply decreases, which leads to higher homelessness necessarily. And I know I'm not talking about like I'm talking about the derivative of the function rather than the function itself. Obviously, housing isn't literally decreasing. But if we're comparing these two situations, the rate at which one is increasing is lower than the other. And in a rent-controlled situation, there will be less housing that will be made than otherwise. Obviously, some housing will still get made. Those 400,000 units might get made. But in a world where we didn't use rent control, maybe we could have built 600,000 units. So in a sense, we lost 200,000 units, even though obviously on paper we didn't. We gained 400,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that I would just argue like that. Like, there's no way to know that.
There are ways to know that. That's what the field of economics is doing. Like,
I mean,
you
New York
Let
hasn't
Magic,
had
let Magic go. Let Magic go. Let
Yeah.
Magic go. Then I got a couple super chats
But-
and you can respond. I promise. Go ahead.
yeah.
like New York has had this system in for a while now. Like again, a lot of it is optional when you build. Like obviously, some areas or some prerequisites you might not know, but there is a voluntary opt-in system for your tax rebate. But the idea that all the housing that we currently have is just going to completely disappear, and a number in which that 400,000 doesn't make up, and we were able to keep a lot of our residents in housing currently while we're building, seems to be what the goal is. And what I'm asking you is, like, assuming we don't do the rent control and we're building the 400 units like Mom Domini is currently doing, are you suggesting that more developers will build cheaper housing
I don't
during
know about
that
cheaper
time?
housing. More housing. Because filtering effects.
So, okay.
But
But the filtering happens over time. Currently the poor need somewhere to
it
live.
happens almost immediately. Because as soon as this place opened up, I moved. I'm like, hell yeah. I was there opening day. And that slot opened up. And within I don't know how soon they were able to fill that position, but probably within like 2 weeks. Like, it does happen almost immediately. The filtering is very quick. Someone was able to live in my previous apartment who can afford, or who needs to afford that. Who $1,000 for a 2-bedroom is a great deal for them, and they're like, hell yeah. So what if it's kind of dingy in here? So what if it's kind of old? I'll deal with it. I used to be poor too. I had rent you could not fucking believe. It was like I lived in a house that was made in the 60s. It didn't have AC. It had a fucking swamp cooler. In America, that's a crazy situation. And rent, I kid you not, this was in 2016, was $250 for my apartment. It was like I shared it with roommates, but for my own room, $250. It was shit. It was shit, and the landlord never did anything.
We're
And I was
learning so
happy.
much.
I was happy to do it because I'm like, I'm in college. I can't fucking. It was
Let me-
necessary for my situation, and then I got a better job, and then I got to shift away, and then someone should be able to replace me. Someone who needs that situation. Someone who's
I'll
in
give,
that state in their life.
Yeah, I'll give Magic a chance to respond after I
Yeah.
read these super chats. $20 from Dirty Deeds for free to say, Wick, I hate you. Smexually, of course. Well, thank you. Hate Smex is the best Smex. Okay, thank you for
I
that.
don't know what the fuck you're talking
$2
about.
from Testicle Johnson to say, tax the homeless. $10 from Pondering Politics to
Oh my
say,
god!
ask Hunter.
Stop!
Ask Hunter if his analysis
Fucking
on
Rise
rent
of
control
Skywalker.
has considered the robust body of research which shows that The Rise of Skywalker is the best Star Wars sequel. Thank you for the $10.
Every single time.
$2 from Testicle Johnson to say,
So
back in
annoying.
my day, we didn't have pants. Oh, what do you think do you guys think I have pants on right now? Crazy work. And then finally, $20 from Adam Defunded. Hunter, I believe you're misunderstanding my point. One big reason people struggle to rent or afford housing is the different kinds of taxes individuals face before seeing their income, which leaves little room for themselves.
Sure. Yeah. Like, but it also benefits us in other intangible ways. Like, this isn't necessarily the debate. We could talk about whether or not taxes are theft later, but
Lactoid is ready and willing, I'm sure.
yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, whatever. That's not exactly the debate right now. I would be happy to talk about why
Fair enough.
taxes benefit the
But
community and
yeah.
actually your individual paycheck more.
I want to
so
give
than that.
I want to give Magic the mic to answer your filtering argument. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just in New York, that I don't feel like that's the case. Like the housing there is not being built as quickly as it needs to be. In that situation, as ozone would or not ozone, the zoning laws would need to be reduced
I agree.
quickly. And so I think in the situation that Madami's currently in, because he doesn't have control of all those things, is doing rent control to prevent people from being on the street while you build that home, those housing. And I agree. We both agree on the solution. It's just that we don't agree whether this rent control is a good thing or a bad thing to prevent people from losing their home at the time.
So I'll bite a few bullets to get to this point because this might seem like a little crazy because this is whatever. one, I definitely think that rent control is a negative. It's not a positive. It's not a short-term solution. It's a short-term problem that we're creating for ourselves. Second, there are probably short-term solutions if we have the budget for them. But if we don't have the budget for them, then most homeless people are usually only homeless for a certain amount of time, only for like 1 or 2 years. It's usually people living in their car or living in a motel because they can't find a place to rent that they can afford. And they're in between jobs, but once they find a job that it can stick, and like usually they're sort of shifting in and out of this. So long-term solutions will fix their problems, even though they're going to be homeless for a year, and that sucks. It really sucks. Like I'm very sympathetic to their plight. I'm just saying, like, this idea that we we need to just lower their rent, even though that might prevent these long-term solutions from actually taking hold, and scare away developers and increase rent for all of the other people who might all like. We talk we talk about rent stabilized units, but it's not just poor people who live in rent stabilized units. Poor people also live in regular units, and those costs are also going up, right? Because maybe they only
Yeah,
found places in that because we agree there's a housing shortage, right? So maybe
yeah.
people only found a place that they can just barely make. And so when we rent control these other units, we increase costs, which you already agreed to. We increase costs on the non-rent stabilized units, and then maybe those people get displaced.
Yeah, like I said, that it doesn't prevent it fully. The
Yeah,
idea is that you prevent less of
it
it.
doesn't prevent it any. It doesn't. I don't. I don't know. I feel like the crux of the conversation is that you simply deny the scientific fact that like um we can actually ascertain this information, because you're like, there's no controls, and if there's no controls, we actually can't learn anything on a scientific level, and that feels very bizarre. That feels like you have to discard almost all of medicine. That feels like you have to disregard a lot of scientific achievements if you take that position. um and I don't know why I can't show you a study and
Well,
you change your mind, I guess, is what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
if you want to, I mean, I can look at the study if you want me to look at it. It's just that, like, so, I mean, economics is not a hard science. Like,
Yeah,
I,
but
I
it's
agree with a lot of the principles, but you're acting like it's like the sun is red or whatever. There are like,
The sun is red
wait, hold on.
in the morning and in the night.
When we
Okay,
when we talk
right?
about
Like
when we talk
sunset, sundown. It's red. Anyway, sorry.
yeah, I mean, it's just hard. So, like, economics,
Okay.
it tries to quantify it as best as it can, and I took economics. But the thing is, it doesn't always account for the human factor and how things or what people are motivated by it as well. Like,
That's
there are
what
some times where things act irrationally within the market.
hold on. You're acting like the entire field of economics is just like theorizing. It's like just fucking people sitting around a room going like, well, what would happen if we lower taxes? And someone goes, that's a good idea. Let's write about that. They fucking look at what happens when we decrease taxes or increase taxes or implement rent control policies. There are thousands of cities around the world that they are constantly tracking the economic factors for, and then trying to pick apart what caused them to shift in different ways. That it is outcome oriented um um
Yeah, I didn't say it
science,
wasn't like I
which is
wasn't saying it's like an academic study or anything, or that it
no, no,
has
no,
no
sure,
valid validity. I'm just saying, like,
but it's
it's you
as
still have to
valid
factor in
as
the.
other techniques of like medicine. Like when it comes to like COVID vaccines or something like that, we don't truly know what's going on in a human body, and there is no control. There is no actual control, because what could be going on in a different person, I can't create a duplicate of myself and then give myself a vaccine
Not
and the
yet.
other person not a vaccine. So it seems like, given your logic, we have to disregard all vaccinations. We because that's a soft science, because there aren't hard logical assertions that we're making from um first order principles.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with that, because, like, medical science usually does have controllables, and is a hard
You
science
can't
to it,
you
and even.
can't have an actual control. You can't have a duplicate me, one who took the vaccine and one who didn't take the vaccine. What you can do is you can have someone who didn't take the vaccine and me who took the vaccine, and you can compare these two situations. But it's very possible that she was going to die of a heart attack anyway. That actually she like all we can do, like we don't have these like clear, exact, perfect mechanisms whenever we're looking at these sort of situations. That's the reality of medicine. It's the reality of economics. But we can still do a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I wasn't arguing that it wasn't a pretty good job. I was
Okay,
just,
no,
I was
but
just
it is
saying that there
because
are things that happen within
because you
the
can't find a
economy
single
that doesn't make
economist.
sense, doesn't follow
You can't
that the market principle.
you can't find a single economist, or you'd be very hard pressed to find a single economist who is in support of rent control, because it misallocates resources. It increases prices. It, like, I don't know, like I can go over it. It seems like you're a trust the science guy, except for if it's the science that doesn't sort of conform to your priors. And that
Okay, while you take a minute, and I'll let you respond uninterrupted. But let me get some of these super chats out.
go for it.
$5 from Adam Defunded. Part 1. Hunter,
Oh,
I understand why you think taxation is
we
beneficial.
can talk about it
It helps fund welfare, subsidies, and other government programs. I
Yes.
get that argument.
Mhm.
Part 2 for $10. Look,
No. That's
he's
fine. That's fine. I
paying
get that
me?
you're just reading
We're
it.
read
I
this, and
hear
you're going to sit and listen.
But
Okay, Hunter?
obviously you don't
Sit
think I should respond.
and listen. Okay? A
Go ahead.
donator is speaking.
Fair.
Listen, learn. Okay? $10 from Adam Defunded, Part 2. My issue is that there's a lot of evidence suggesting our tax dollars aren't always going where they're supposed to. A lot of money gets wasted or spent inefficiently. One might say misallocated.
You're telling me for this. For the first time.
$10 for Part 3 from Adam Defunded. If we reduced or removed certain taxes, individuals would have more power to decide locally how to spend their own money instead of relying on centralized government decisions. And then Part 4 for $50. That
Whoa.
approach worked for many years before modern taxation expanded. After the Civil War, and especially after World War I, the role of taxation changed dramatically. And I think we're still feeling the long-term effects of that shift today.
So I will respond. I'll give a short response. I will say this is not the topic. I would be happy to have this debate, and I am all for also shifting around a lot of the tax policies. I have very strong positions on tax policies, and I do think that it's misallocated right now. I don't think it's optimal to just get rid of the taxes, but that's something that we can be talking about later, or not exactly right now, or maybe after the show. I don't know. But right now we're talking about rent control. So
if bro pays
no
me
disrespect.
$50, we're talking about it now. I'm just saying. $5 from Dirty D's to say, "Sit, dog. Daddy Wick speaketh." First of all, none of you are dogs. Okay, those are chatters. Never mind. Anyway, Magic, go ahead. Magic did send me a thing that showed 32 economists, 32 economists that do support rent control. So what is your answer
Is it
to
in
that?
the thing?
No, he
Did he
DM'd
send
it
it?
to me. I can DM it
Can
to
you
you.
DM it to me? I would love to know, like, what exactly their statements were, and
All the
This is-
empirical literature suggests that the basic economic story does not hold when it comes to anti-rent control arguments, said one economist.
okay, doesn't that prove my point though? Because he's saying all of economics. Sorry, I keep doing that. It's economists and economics. He just said all of economics disagrees with me, and they're all wrong. So doesn't that actually prove my point that you are hard pressed to find someone? Because he's like, I'm the 1 in a million, and I go, exception kind of proves the rule here, right?
I mainly sent it because it's like you told me I couldn't find one, so I was
I
like,
said hard pressed.
I don't think his Google was very hard pressed.
You know what? I'll take the L on that one.
Sorry, but
It's
Magic, I do
actually
want you to
easy
respond.
find
Hold on,
people
hold on.
anywhere.
I do want Magic to respond to the overall point, though, right?
Will you repeat the overall points for me? We've been.
Go ahead. Sorry, yeah, I get distracted. Hunter,
Yeah,
repeat your
I'm
overall point.
I'm honestly trying to remember where specifically we were.
Okay, so let me do it then. The
Apologize.
overall point that Hunter is trying to make is that rent control, even if done in small doses, does not actually even temporarily have good effects. And most economists believe that to be true, and it is borne out in most studies.
Yeah,
that is his argument.
Yes.
I want to give him a chance to respond to that argument.
It was
Go
the
ahead.
anti-science thing, if that helps jog your memory. Sorry, that was the rant.
Oh, okay. So like, I mean, I would just that assumes that if rent control didn't happen again, we would have a boom in housing that gets built, and that's just not the case. It didn't. Like if you, even in that article that I seen earlier, I did brisk through it, but I saw that when they compared it to New Jersey, which is where they did the study in, that even after rent control was repealed, that they didn't get a boom in housing. It didn't happen. So like as we're assuming in a world where rent control doesn't happen and everything goes in lines just perfectly, and we build all this massive housing and the problem solves itself, I don't see that happening, especially in New York.
Sure.
I just don't see it.
So what I'm looking at right now is a meta-analysis, and I can send it to you. They looked at 16 different studies, and they found that what is this? Oh, it's one. Okay, so 15 out of 16 studies. Well, actually, I'll be really clear about this. 12 out of 16 studies showed that it had a negative impact on supply. 3 studies showed that it had a neutral effect, and 1 study showed that it had a positive. So we can pick and choose anecdotes and say in these specific circumstances, it seems to be something about the case, and maybe we can try to understand why it didn't really get this boom of supply. Yeah, there are definitely some anecdotes that we can definitely point to the reality of the situation. However, almost every study, 75% of the literature is very clearly pointing to a negative correlation. That's like
Yeah,
what
and I
meta-analyses are doing, right? It's trying to compile.
Yeah, and
I
I did agree with that. Like I said, the rent control is not a one size fit all. It depends on heavily on where you're at and what type of market you're dealing with.
You just said it wouldn't lower the supply though, and I'm saying it does. It certainly.
Oh no, I'm not saying it wouldn't lower the supply. I'm saying that it does. Even if we didn't do rent control, it doesn't increase the supply either. The problem still remains.
If we don't do rent control, it doesn't increase the supply. I agree. We have to increase the supply through other means. We can't just do nothing. Yes.
So can I maybe translate a little bit here? I think we're missing each other just a bit. As I understand your argument, Magic, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? But your argument is that even if there are negative effects to rent control, we should still do rent control to protect the people who live there from being pushed out. And
that's correct.
Yeah, and that is a moral thing to do.
Sure.
Even if we're going to take a hit, we need and have a duty. The government has a duty to protect its citizens, and New York City has a duty to protect its current residents from being pushed out by high prices, rising prices, and that this is the way to do it temporarily. Would you be able to respond to that?
Yeah,
Hunter?
Sure. I think that's fair. I guess my question is, what negative implications from rent control do you concede?
I mean that it does shorten supply.
So it increases prices long term, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you agree that rent control increases prices long term, but that's a necessary evil because it doesn't increase prices short term?
It doesn't increase prices short term and allows you to find other avenues to build more supply outside of the rent control, outside of the free market.
But it won't. Sorry, but it won't as much, right? Like it's like you're saying we'll take short-term benefits over long-term benefits, and you agree that the long-term benefits are worse, substantially worse. Like the supply is.
Hold on. Do you agree with that they're substantially worse?
Okay. I don't agree that they're substantially worse. I do agree that it doesn't like it does short supply does increase it. I don't think it increases it as much as like he may be portraying it in this scenario.
Okay. So.
I mean, because the rent stabilization, they still increase like 3% every year.
No, yeah.
Like they don't. Sure. It's not that doesn't increase at all.
I understand, and obviously, rent stabilized are a more muted evil than rent control, but still, I would probably be against all forms of rent control and rate stabilization, and just massively uptick housing, and then let the free market take care of that specific situation. Because
that's no guarantee. That's my problem. There's no guarantee that the free market comes in and saves the day. The only way that I can guarantee that housing gets built and this bad thing doesn't happen is if the government takes it in their own hands, does they're doing now, and the government also starts building the housing themselves, because there's no guarantee that even if they didn't do rent control or rent stabilization, that the building would happen.
Yeah, what
It
feels
doesn't.
really
There's
bizarre
no.
about this conversation is that there are so many developers who are begging to make housing. Like, we have so many permits that are on the books that are going through all the processing fees, and you're like, well, we can't count on them wanting to. We're seeing that they want to. We're seeing that they want to build housing. Like, they're knocking on the city hall door. Please let us build a house. And every single person in New York is screaming, "No! You're just gonna invite these damn immigrants in." Or sorry, not immigrants, transplants. They're different apparently. Um, like, I I agree that like the free market isn't. I'm not a libertarian. I don't believe in like this end all be all for the free market. But I will say that how like landlords in particular, the housing market in particular, is a very diversified field. There really aren't monopolies in the housing market. There's like mega investors make up like 3% of the entire supply. Like it's really diversified. So it does seem like if it's very clear that there are people who are willing to take care of this problem, and it's diversified that we don't have a monopolistic issue, why don't we hand it off to the free market? Why would we spend all of that money when there are people who are willing to spend the money?
Well, the biggest issue is like the with that being the case. So this thing that Mondami has control over, he doesn't have control over the zoning or the red tape that we have to get rid of for this
Doesn't he?
these massive
He
amount.
can fast track permits. That's what he was doing.
Yeah,
You said he
I mean, he can fast track permits, but he can't completely undo zoning laws or the NIMBYism that we have in the country as a whole. He can't do that.
he can't do that because he doesn't have political capital to. I would say.
Yeah,
I don't. And
yeah.
the thing is that
So
mayoral duties range city to city. I don't know exactly how it works in the city. I know that my mayor isn't able to, but certainly some mayors can fully warp the zoning restrictions, or they can at least pass a
Here's a question, an audience question for you from Cham Cham.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm doing this for free because we like Cham Cham here, even though it's for free. Ask Hunter what he expects the middle and working class to do when they can no longer live in New York City. No one will take a train for 2 hours to work at Target. What do economists think about that?
That my solution fixes that issue. Like, I agree that that's an issue. I agree that low and middle income people. Could you read the question one more time? Because I'm like, obviously,
you saw me take a
bite
bite of my cookie.
I'm sorry.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also in the chat if you can read his chat. Like she puts it in there.
I'm not in his, but I'll. TV.
I was expecting you to answer the question, and so I would have time to eat my cookie.
Valid.
But
that's fair. Is it in the YouTube chat?
No. Cham Cham Girl says, and I'll just read it again.
Okay.
Ask Hunter what he expects the middle and working class to do when they can no longer live in New York City. No one will take a train for 2 hours to work at Target. What do economists think about that? And then she snaps her fingers.
I feel crazy because I feel like I feel like that's a question for Wizard. Am I crazy? Like, it feels like obviously I'm suggesting that there should be more housing for those people, that they're being displaced consistently and gentrified against when we have these high income people coming in and displacing them out of their homes. That's a genuine problem. But instead of turning on the immigrants, why don't we have houses for these people? There are people who want to build homes. There are people who want to fill those homes. Why don't we just take care of the problem that way? Let the businesses expand and grow the economy while we do it. And the real answer at the very end of the day is just homeowners don't want to see an increase in their don't want to see a decrease in their property values. That's it. That's the answer. That's the reason why it doesn't happen. Let's stop that. Let's bypass them. Let's whatever. Like, let's try to discourage them from enacting their preferred policies. But yeah, obviously, my preferred solution is build more housing. Those transplants can move into those housing, and then the native New Yorkers suddenly get cheaper rent. And like, that's what's crazy is like my policy guarantees. But there was really interesting literature that for every 10% increase in nearby housing stock, nearby rents fell by about 1%. Fell. not just freeze, not just increased slightly less, decreased by 1%. I don't know, like it kind of feels crazy whenever I talk about housing, because it's like, obviously this is the solution. Obviously this is the fix. Like it's such a silver bullet answer. But yeah, I don't know. Do you sorry, just to get back to the point, Wizard, do you think that, like, do you think the economists are just mistaken and that it's a soft science so they really can't speak on these issues?
I don't think that they can't speak on these issues. I don't believe like every area is the same, and they're missing the human factor and the demand in a certain area. They
Hold
can't
on.
factor those things. Like
How
it's
could they be
all
how could they be missing the human factor when they're not theorizing, they're looking at outcomes. They're looking at cities. These are studies.
yeah. Okay, if you're only looking at outcomes, then you don't know what caused the outcome. If you're only looking at the
Yeah, but
outcome,
for sure. But isn't that the exact same argument that's made in medicine, where someone you give one person a vaccine and you give another person not a vaccine, and you go, this person got rid of COVID first, and you're like, but you don't actually know. There's not a, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you understand that these are the same mechanisms that medicine is using?
yeah, I understand that's what they use. The difference is though that there's human factor in the economy.
I
There are
agree.
sometimes when the market doesn't do what it theoretically should do
Obviously,
when things
yeah.
happen.
Obviously,
Yeah,
yes.
that's all I'm
Which
trying to
is
say.
which
So
is why
that could be the case in New
which is
York because
we
it's one of the biggest cities in the nation
which is
where everybody wants to move, and
which
I think demand is a lot higher than you could possibly ever increase supply almost sometimes.
yeah, but
So
it feels crazy to be going, but you don't know the human factor. It's not always how it's theorized to be. We're not theorizing. We're saying this is how it is. It is the case. We have looked at circumstances in which people pass rent control and we see an increase in pricing, and then we check that
well,
against
it depends.
closer regions who don't pass rent control, who have similar
But
construction, who are as similar as we can make them or see
n-
them,
n-
and they
now
see
one of the
consistently.
questions I have for you, real
Yeah.
quick, though, like, are we using rent control as a general overall term, or are we talking about specifically stabilized units?
Rent control
Because
in
I would
general.
agree that complete rent control is probably
Sure.
not viable. Like like hard caps on what you can charge at a place
No, but
permanently.
there's
Like some of the units in New York are kind of like that. They were kind of grandfathered in 1947. That they
there's
can't increase the rent at all. Like
yeah,
it's just this permanently stuck at the price it was in 1947.
yeah, that's crazy and dumb. I don't like we can look through each of these individual studies, but like, can we not trust the experts a little bit? Can we not say that, like, obviously they're looking at different factors, and if they pulled apart a very specific circumstance in which rent control mattered, they would notify the masses? Or do you think you understand this field better than they do?
No, I don't think I understand it more than they do. I'm just
Okay.
saying that they don't know like they can't know exactly what the human factor will do.
But you know,
And, and I,
know that they don't know, and they don't know that they don't know, right?
yeah.
Okay, that feels extremely cocky and very anti-science. That feels so aggressively anti-science. That feels like the exact same
Well,
talking points that MAGA
I
has
don't hold you.
for doctors and nurses and engineers and all
Why
of
do
these experts who are actually
why do
trying to
I
focus on the issue. And you're like, they just don't know. And they don't know that they don't know. They're blinded by their expertise bias. But I know because I'm an outsider looking in, and I took one economics class,
well,
and
I
I
mean,
recognize
a
actually.
blog. Okay. Anyway, do anyone read blogs anymore? Anyway, I don't know.
You like.
oh,
You gotta let, you gotta
I
let him
hate.
respond. You gotta let Magic respond. Magic respond. Go ahead, please.
I mean, the constant framing that like MAGA is like super funny.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
I'm not.
I
I
know it
just
doesn't feel like it.
know like well, how do you
Sorry.
explain like so like medical science is an actual like hard science. Like they
You
do
keep
there
saying
is
that.
no
It
human factor
depends.
they have to factor for in that.
There
They literally
is.
test it with the most multiple genetic codes. It goes through so many clinical trials.
You
Like
can't always do retrospective, or you can't always do double blind um shit. Whatever,
Double blind studies.
Yeah, no, but what's the double blind placebo studies?
I
You
don't know
can't
the full
always
term.
do those. Sometimes you have to do retrospectives because you don't always have a group of people that you can ethically just sort of split into two and not give some medicine. You have to do retrospective studies in some circumstances. Do we just disregard all of those cases? Do you go, no? Everyone sort of
No,
knows
and
that
I'm not
it's
fully
obviously less
disregarding your
good.
evidence. I've never fully disregarded your evidence on it. And I agree with you on market principles the entire time we've had this
Yeah, but
debate.
it feels weird when you're saying you're not disregarding the study, but you kind of are. You keep saying, but this there's a human factor to it.
I'm
Supply
arguing
doesn't
New
actually
York is
decrease.
unique. That's literally what I'm arguing.
What
New
makes New
York is
York
unique
unique?
because it's on an island where it doesn't have the ability
What about
or
that?
the ability as much to expand as much as you want to do.
We can expand up.
It,
We can expand up
uh,
just as easily. It's really easy to expand up. Like
the
genuinely, you should look at a city for expanding up. New York. They have skyscrapers everywhere. They have people living on floor 100. And that's why don't we do that more? It's been made completely illegal over the last like 40 years.
well, that part I don't know why they do that.
Well,
But
I mean,
probably
yeah, property tax. I'm going to go back to, or not property taxes, property values. People don't want to see
Okay.
property values anyway.
Okay, we've kind of
Kind of circling, yeah.
circled the drain a little bit. I think we've kind of hit the natural resting point for taking the show and getting to closings. If you have questions for either of these lovely young gentlemen,
You really mean it?
super chat them to me, and I will read the questions and ask them the questions, and hopefully they can answer. But while you do that, I'm going to let each of these people have closing statements. And in these closing statements, please tell people where you can be found if you want to be found. I have a link to the channels in my YouTube description. Well, at least the one who gave me their channels. But
shit.
yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna give the mic first to Mr. Hunter, and then I'm gonna let Magic have the last word. Go ahead, Hunter.
I'm going to say, obviously, follow me. Hunter E. Kozak. I apologize for not giving my socials. That's on me. I'm Hunter E. Kozak everywhere, though. Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. I mostly post on TikTok. But I'm on Twitter all the time, too. Yeah, I do think that this is, like, deeply anti-science. I think that this idea that, like, you understand that there are human elements to economics. Yeah, duh. Like, I feel like even in economics 101, it's like, don't you understand that they're like, even though it's not the smartest decision for consumers often operate in very like unpredictable ways, but there are predictable macro statements that we can make underneath the unpredictable nature of human behavior, that it does still operate in some ways that we can track, even if it's not perfectly operatable. Anyway, economists are clear that like this is very clearly the issue, and if you have a very specific issue with the studies, we can do it, but it doesn't seem like you do. You're just like, well, these economists say that otherwise, and rather than take the bulk of the evidence of the expert's opinion, you sort of just agree with the ones that agree with your priors, and that feels a little bit anti-science to me. And I know you're not pro MAGA, but sometimes I'm not sure.
Good talk. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
I still appreciate though, Wizard. I hope it's been a good conversation. I don't dislike you. You're a great person.
Okay.
You're a great interlocutor.
But gang, I got his X linked on my YouTube description. Give him a follow. You can find all his socials there. Hunter's a great guy. We love him. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having
Magic,
me, Wick.
go ahead. Last word.
So how I got around with this is that I mean I still believe like rent control is necessary, at least in New York, especially with how their economy is, with how because I don't want the people there to be kicked out of their homes, and I don't expect the solutions, because we both agreed the solution to remove zoning and the possibly the subsidies that he was talking about is probably not viable. If the only way to keep these people in their homes and off the street while we build those homes is to do rent control, then I believe that's a cost that's worth having versus the alternative, which I believe if we try to we don't do implement anything and we try to do the building things he does, while we're trying to do that, we're going to lose a lot more New Yorkers than you would otherwise. But yeah, that's pretty much how I think about it, the situation.
Well, thank you both for being here. Here is a couple questions. $5 from another American, and this is to Hunter.
Okay.
Does Hunter acknowledge that freezing rent is good for the 2 million people that get rent control at the expense of the wealthier individuals?
I think that you can pick and choose who it benefits. There are definitely some people who are going to be able to benefit, largely homeowners who have higher margins, but largely that's not going to be the circumstance. Largely, the margins are going to be slim enough because it's a competitive market enough that not all of those 2 million people are going to get those benefits. They're going to find a way to recoup those costs, and whatever. It's not going to hurt every single 2 million of them for sure. But
Yep. Another question for Hunter. The German Institute for Economic Research concludes that there is no hit to supply in the German second-generation rent control system.
okay,
Perhaps ask Hunter about this?
I would love to get into that. I've got a couple meta-analysis that very clearly say that there's a decrease in supply. I would be interested in, like, for example, hold on, actually, one sec.
He's AIing it, gang. He's
No,
asking Claude. Okay.
No,
He's
no, no.
Rob Noring.
I'm curious because I do know that Vienna. I was just looking at their model, and they used rent control in a very, very, very targeted way. The real concern, the real huge concern, is that you don't want to do rent control on new apartments because it disincentivizes developers from wanting to operate there. That's the tangible concern. So if you specifically target extremely old places, it has a much more muted effect. So I know Vienna did like pre-World War II. Like if your building is more than like 100 years old, then or I don't know, 80 years old, it's rent controlled. I think that's like, obviously it's probably still not great, but it's like, and they also build like 4 times the amount that New York does. So it feels like you're eating a brownie while like working out and being super fucking healthy. And you're like, is that brownie really gonna hurt? No. But like, should you be eating that brownie? I guess not. Does that make sense? It's like, let's not delude ourselves into thinking that eating the brownie is getting us these gains, but it's also probably not like that much shooting ourselves in the foot when we're doing all of this extra work on top of it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Any other questions before we let these young virile gentlemen away? We'll give them a minute, gang. Oh, just on the birthright citizenship stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think while we wait for questions, and we'll give them like 2 minutes here. I'm watching my Twitter as we go, and there's so many people on the right who are so angry at this decision. So like the end of our nation, our civilization is done, blah blah blah. Like the idea that a decision basically upholding what's been in America for over 100 years, right?
Yeah.
Is suddenly destroying us.
Yeah.
Is wild to me that they would say this. Like,
I'm
this is, again, we aren't just implementing birthright citizenship, gang. This isn't new. This is something that's been going on for over 100 years. I would argue since the beginning of our country, when we had, based on the British judicial system, which uses jus soli, right, birthright citizenship, or at least did at the time. Like, again, it didn't destroy us. What do we talk about? Like, why is it going to destroy us suddenly now? I don't know.
I'm waiting to check out Kai Schwemmer's Instagram. I'm just excited to see how
Did you see my
rage-filled
debate
he
against
is.
him on
Yeah,
this
I did.
subject?
I've
Did you like
debated
it?
him a couple different times. Yeah, it was really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
He's screamed about birthright citizenship to me before. I mean, he's a nice guy, but maybe
Well,
screamed is
they're
a
all
little
nice.
unfair.
They're Mormons, right? So you know how they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Anyway,
You
it
had
doesn't look like we got more questions coming in, but I want to thank everyone for participating. What do I got coming up? So tomorrow, we're going to be having She's Right and Destiny are going to be facing down Dragon Fist TV and Admiral Gibbs on US Aid. was USAID something that was good to get rid of? Was it in America's interest to end USAID? Gibbs and Dragonfist say yes, it was. And they'll be arguing with Destiny and She's Right tomorrow on my channel at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please tune into that. It will be fun. And then on Thursday, we're doing a little bit of a drama content. North is Live will be joining me, and we're going to be covering the fall of Counterpoints. How Counterpoints fell victim in part to snarker narratives, and just basically how he has collapsed, immolated himself, basically, and why that happened, what the effects has been, and more importantly, perhaps how we can fight back against these evil narratives that are going around and stop it from happening. Because I want to be very clear: calling CPS on someone with the information that he had was a malicious act. You don't do that. That is not okay. Evil, I think, is the word, right? Because like people don't understand how CPS works. People can lose their fucking kids over nothing. It's
Have you
really
seen
bad.
You see the Pete Buttigieg recently got
Yes.
CPS called on him?
Yes.
It's horrifying.
Yes. People called CPS on him, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And kept him from his kid for how long?
It was a day. Like everyone kind of recognized that it wasn't like. Luckily, the CPS workers were like, "It's
Yeah,
definitely
but
seems like it's politically motivated." No, it's
that's a
horrifying.
huge,
No. Sorry. Of
huge,
course, I'm not trying
figure.
to downplay it at all. The
Yeah, yeah.
idea that you're forced away from your kids and like forced to live in a hotel and saying you can't have contact with these people because someone picked up the phone and called us, and he's like, I'm a national political figure. Like it is horrifying.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, it really does upset me, and it freaks me out. So ditto to everything Wick has been saying, although I don't know
Yeah,
the
6 p.m.
details of
Eastern
the
is the
counterpoint
times for
situation.
that. Friday we're probably also going to have a YouTube stream, or not a YouTube stream, call-in stream. So if you guys have problems with anything I say, you can call in then. Anything coming up on your end, Hunter?
I don't know. I do debates every Monday. You should tune in on my YouTube. I make videos every day on TikTok. So, follow me on TikTok and YouTube, and I post I post a video a day. So that's my goal.
Check them out, gang. Magic, you got anything coming up?
Nothing in particular.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Cham, for the 5 Wick TV gift subs on Twitch. Love to see my Twitch donos. Team Magic. Thank you for that. Okay, that's pretty much all we got. Remember, we still live in a country where birthright citizenship
Hell
reigns
yes,
supreme.
brother.
MAGA and Trump were destroyed. The nativists were destroyed. SCOTUS, heroes, all 5 of them. Okay, right? Heroes.
Hey, that's a little too far.
Not Gorsuch, not Kavanaugh, not Alito, not Thomas.
ACB's
But all
a
the rest of them,
hero.
fucking heroes. Okay, all the rest of them, fucking heroes. Not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear judicial robes. Look, we're gonna glaze them when they do well. Okay, that's what we're gonna do.
She's a hero today.
We love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. Shakira Law grows. Those hips don't lie. I don't know about that, but yeah. Okay. I guess that's it. I'm stalling because we haven't hit 2 hours yet, and it's weird. But yeah, I love you guys. I'm gonna. We might have gang. We might have a big announcement coming up about LibCon. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna confirm if I can actually tell people yet. But stay tuned for that. It's gonna be big. You're gonna want to tune in for this. I love you guys. I'm gonna go. Bye.
Bye.